Welcome back to the Lanterne Rouge cycling podcast for the Vuelta España stage. Let me check. 11 from a technological campus back to the technological campus. They do 3 laps to the finish line, including at the end, and but they don't actually finish inside the technological campus, which was a little bit disappointing. I thought 167 Ks with 2 hills at the start. Then they basically do a circuit which with 4 different climbs. They do 10Ks 4%, Cat 2, then a 5.6K 6% climb, but it's steeper in the middle. Well, it's 2Ks at 11% at the start. They go around, do that again. We've got a flat valley where there's the finish line, another descent, then a 4K 4% hill on a big road, and pretty fast roads, it seemed like in the north here. Another descent, and then the final decisive climb, 2.8Ks, 9.2%. That's about an 8-minute climb, maybe 7-minute climb, if my maths is correct. And it's steep in parts as well. It's irregular. It's 11% for a bit and over steeper than that. And then a fast descent and then a flat 3-4Ks to the finish. It looked like a mini world champs. We had some more abandonment, Benji, did we not, this morning?
Yeah, basically, over the last few weeks, we've had a few riders with heat strokes, but also a few riders with COVID as well, coming out of the races. And if we take a look at the list of this morning, if it decides to load on me, then we've got Harper not finishing, but not starting was Rota, Conrad, and Arensman. Arensman already struggled with heat stroke earlier this week, but it was COVID-related that he left the race together with Conrad as well, COVID-related. So COVID is still spurring in the peloton, unfortunately. But outside of that, if we take a look at the parkour itself of today, like, it's quite a few climbs in there, but it looked more like a breakaway stage than a we'll see GC action from far, although we expected an attack from one rider on the final climb, no?
I thought this was the perfect stage for Roglic. Like, okay, there's descent, which isn't ideal, but also if you play your cards right, the descent might not be ideal. You could have people collaborating with you. I thought this BORA had to try here. Now, I think we discussed it last night, Benji, but them using their roulettes to try and control the whole stage to go for the stage win, based on the evidence of their team so far, bad idea.
Correct.
They'll lose control. They just straight up won't be able to control the stage. So that made the breakaway battle more interesting because also there was a lack of control. And Decathlon, Benji, I think we've given them a lot of props, but also they are not Visma or UAE. Like they really don't have a great control of break formation every day. Same with BORA, but every day someone in the top 10 or wanting to be in the top 10 wants to jump, and that has made these break fights really long and really important.
Long, certainly, because I swear today was such a long break formation again, especially because once again, it was on TV. So I don't know what changed between 2 days ago and 14 days ago, but for some reason, since 2 days ago, we see the break formation on TV, the full stage. So I'm not complaining. I do like seeing that, especially when it's a stage that will likely end with a breakaway potentially winning. So I love that. We see that long breakaway formation. We see small groups getting away. Campenaars being very active. We see bigger groups getting away every now and then. But once the breakaway formation is done, we've got a massive group. I swear it was like 36 to 40 riders. And you're right. There's always going to be one rider in there that will be relatively close in GC, but I think it was about the most perfect rider to be in there for GC in the first place. Like, if you have someone that is within 10 minutes of GC, it might as well be George Bennett, right? On 9 minutes and so forth.
Yeah, because it's like, first of all, he's on 9 minutes for a reason. Like Adam Yates, we saw again today, Adam Yates was also on 9 minutes for a reason. And it's because they are not actually doing so well in this race. David Gaudu, or let's look at like Landa. He's closer for a reason because he's not just having a terrible day one day. So you're not going to keep all of them out there, whether it's Koos, whether it's going to be Skjelmoser or Bennett. You just pick the least worst option, and George Bennett took the opportunity, I think, and I was really, really impressed by his team today. And it quickly went in the break. There was a couple of fugas. I don't know what. I think Lotto Destiny were trying to get away from him. So Arjen Levens attacked Kamenas because I was like, the break's formed. Decathlon have put the block on. Why is everyone attacking? I think they wanted to get away from Bennett. I couldn't quite figure out why that was happening.
Well, if we take a look at the formation of the breakaway, we've got 19 teams in there, so a lot of teams are actually involved in that breakaway. Israel Premier Tech has 3 teammates next to Bennett. Corbin Strong, Riccatello, and Frigo. So you've got 3 riders that on paper will be trying to get the gap from Bennett's group as big as possible towards the peloton. And when it's 3 riders, I also tend to believe that, okay, these riders have the strength, or at least this breakaway now has the strength to keep going and maybe extend the gap a little bit. So I believed in that part. If you look at the other riders in the breakaway, yes, Lotto Destiny's there with Sepulveda, Livijns, and Kampenaerts. Groupama's there with Thompson, Germani, Bistrom. Alpecin with Meurice, Hermans. Equipo Ken Pharma, Berrari, Ruiz. Leemreizen, Hamilton Pool for DSM Firmenich. We've got Cofidis with Herrada, Martin, and Izagirre. Martin also not too far in GC. I think within 15 minutes, if I recall correctly. So could also move up a little bit in GC. Then I look at Canal Sanchez for Movistar, Narvaez, which on a parkour like this at the Giro, we would have said favorite from the breakaway, together with Rivera as domestique. Walter Kruiswijk for Visma Leasebike, little trek with Verona and Omen. Zana Dunbar for Jaco Alula. Astana with Garofoli. Knox for Soudal. I'm almost there. I'm sorry. I'm almost there. McNulty for UAE Team Emirates. And like McNulty in a large break like this, I feel like he can kind of remain in the background. I feel like people don't notice him that much. Miholjevic, Isasa, and Lebere for Bahrain Victorious, Oiskeltel, and Arkea. So big breakaway. And I forgot to mention one team, a very important team. Red Bull Bora Hansgrohe with Martinez, Gamper, and Dens. I gotta be honest, when I saw that, I thought back to yesterday's podcast when we were previewing the stage, and we were saying the final climb looks like the climb where Primoz Roglic should be able to drop O'Connor. That was our take on it yesterday. Yeah. I was thinking on 2 things. Either Dens and Gamper are there to extend the breakaway gap to go for the stage with Martinez. That's one option. Or it's a satellite rider kind of business. And with 3 satellite riders, did at any point during the race, you think, okay, maybe Roglic goes earlier than the last climb?
No, I didn't think earlier than the last climb. But first of all, they would have been worried maybe about Dens and Gamper passing the second passing of Puerto Aguasantes in the peloton. So if someone in the peloton, if Decathlon push on the base of that, Dens and Gamper might be dropped and not able to help then in the run into the final climb. Martinez is the one most likely to pass the final climb. I must admit, I did not look at this descent on VeloViewer, but it looked pretty steep, pretty close to finish. I was like, how much can a satellite rider help? I mean, satellite riders, they help a lot if it actually matters. Like if you actually get across them and they're pulling and you're pulling against an exposed GC rider, even if it's 3Ks of flat, it can be the difference of like 10 seconds, let's say. So it matters a lot. I did wonder if Bora just ended up in there by accident, but that didn't end up being the case.
It's possible, eh? If there's a break that kind of splits off the front of the peloton, it's possible that you're in there by accident. But then I'd also expect the Decathlon to accidentally be in there because they would also be technically trying to control. But what the Decathlon was doing behind was they were trying to block the road, and that's where I need to complain a little bit, because I've never been a fan of like the behavior of completely blocking the roads. That's something that happens in cycling, though. When a breakaway is already up the road, a team that wants to prevent other people from attacking just lines up their entire team at the front to make sure nobody can go. But in this specific moment, Richard Carapaz, I don't know why, is on the left side of the road next to the riders of Israel that are trying to block the road. And the left rider of Israel gradually moves left and literally rides Richard Carapaz off the road. And Richard Carapaz crashes with 92.7 kilometers to go. Sorry, but that's yellow card behavior for me.
Yeah, we saw a few yellow card things today in cycling. Was it Israel or Decathlon?
It was Decathlon, I'm pretty sure.
Decathlon, yeah. So they couldn't control, but basically Decathlon couldn't control at all with their legs, so they just tried to block it up on this small, narrower climb. And yeah, like you can't run someone off the road. also they weren't blocking it. They weren't doing a great job of blocking if they were even trying to, like, they were still leaving space, and then he's moving. Like, it's one thing to block and ride in a straight line. It's another thing to weave across and try to close, be basically a danger in the peloton. And yeah, that I hope that gets sanctioned. But in the breakaway, Mursis goes ahead and basically nothing happens. No fuga de la fuga can happen. So ordinarily, a break this big, it'll get 4 minutes from the peloton, and immediately will stop working because it's too big. Like, McNulty's not going to pull in a group of 40, and then a group of 4 will go. And the break will basically exist as a break of 40 for 15 minutes. But that doesn't happen because Israel, with George Bennett in there, they just want to extend the GC gap. So they just ride all out with, they had Frigo, Riccitello, Bennett, and Strong. And so Strong rides first, then Frigo, and yeah, they just ride all out. And I got to say, I was like, how long can they do this? Because they got to do 2 proper climbs, and then they got to do like a 35k valley that's rolling. I was like, no way. Like, Victor Campenaerts in the break. I was like, no way are they going to be able to just control it. And they did. I was shocked. Like, also maybe because no one else wanted to attack. I was kind of, if I was everyone else, I'd be like, I'm not going this climb with McNulty, Bennett, or Narvaez.
True, and then we get to the Puerto Aguasantas, which is that second last categorized climb, but it's still like with like roughly 50-55 kilometers to go. And Israel hits the bottom with, I think, only 2 left. I think Corbin Strong's gone. So we've got Frigo and Riccitello doing the pacing on that climb, and they really smash it on that climb. It's not like they're just pacing the group up the climb, and this is where they start splitting the group into pieces. And I don't know if this was really the plan. Maybe the guy was just over eager to keep the pace going, but it was splitting severely to the point that you've got 7 riders, you've got 5 riders, 4 riders, 3 riders, the group just all over the climb. But they get to the top, and there's this weird moment because Israel realizes, okay, we just split the group to 7 riders, 4 or 5 came back. We've got 12 riders in the group right now. Why would anyone help Israel in that situation? So they're obviously not relaying with Israel over the top. So we got a situation where we see a few attacks, but then eventually the group just comes back together.
And George Bennett did a good job, I thought, pulling himself when needed, taking a few pulls. Riccitello's also there as a good climber. But yeah, Bennett wasn't just sitting at the back. He was also like, I'm going to take a pull here and there to just at least moderate the control. And maybe Frigo pulling really hard basically blunted the legs. And so once Brandon Rivera does return, let's say, they're already on the fast rolling section, and he's got to recover because, yeah, like, Israel pulled really strong. Frigo was unbelievably good. He came second behind. Who won that day?
Are we talking Giro last year, or are we...
Today. This Vuelta.
This Vuelta. Oh, God. Behind Thingy. On the where he crashed, Marco Frigo.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember.
Sanchez crashed.
O'Connor, in this famous O'Connor stage. He was second on the famous O'Connor stage. So he's very, very good in the rolling terrain. And he showed that today, basically preventing any fugas because Victor Campenaerts wanted to, but he just couldn't. Barade, all these Verona, Omen, there's riders with multiple, teams with multiple riders. Like Sven-Erik Bistrom, he knows he can't go this finish with McNulty or Narvaez. But back in the peloton, Benji, Decathlon pinned at about 5 minutes. Mm-hmm. And then to Bennett, to Mercer, it was like 6 minutes. I don't know why commentary was like getting so agitated, like saying, oh, Decathlon should be pulling. Like, they're not worried about George Bennett. No. They could have given him more time, and also because someone will take over, and eventually Movistar take over with, it wasn't Nelson Oliveira, was it Arcas pulling?
I think it was. I'm not 100% certain. I didn't particularly care too much about who it was.
It was Arcas, I think, started pulling.
I actually don't mind Movistar doing it. Yeah, you could say it's not their responsibility to do it. Someone will start pacing in the peloton, that whole meme. But in reality, I have no issue with Movistar doing that because they should just focus on maximizing the winning chance. What else is Arcas going to do?
Exactly. Like, it's, just don't have what happened with O'Connor happen, you know? Like, just use your domestiques, use them or lose them. he's going to drop on the Cat 3 near the finish. And so basically Israel shut it down. Campenaerts, this is now on a roller, shallow climb and very small section, like right before the final climb. 2.8 k's, 9% with steeper sections, as I'll remind you. And I would say the favorites in the breakaway, Dunbar, Max Poole, Narvaez, and McNulty and Zana. And it goes to show how late a Fuga de la Fuga can go and be impactful. So I should also say before this, we see the cameras on Nico Denz. I'm like, has he crashed? Has he had a mechanical? No, it looked like he stopped to take a pee. Gamper waits with him. So to me, it was like Bora very, very clearly were dropping back Gamper and Denz to the peloton before the final impactful climb. And well, then they weren't dropping them back to help decathlon pace. So they were dropping them back purely for one reason. Now, you could say it's to help position Roglic into the base to have their two best rouleurs. Mm-hmm. But very clearly to me, that was a sign that they were going to try something on this climb. But yeah, back to the breakaway, I guess, Benji. That Campenaerts move, I was surprised Moore didn't do it. And Berardi, Verona, Max Poole, and a few others go with him. Walter and Kruiswijk, both a Visma miss. A few other guys. Ineos are there with Rivera. That's the problem for McNulty, Benji. If he's there with Soler is probably in the Campenaerts move. You know, like being isolated is really tough. And I was surprised that Fuga got to the whole top of the climb, right? It never got caught.
Yeah, it's weird because like it didn't actually look like a big gap to me at the foot. I didn't feel like it was a large gap, but then again, I felt like it didn't look like 25 seconds yesterday either between Soler and Wout at the foot. So maybe the gap is bigger than we fathom with our heads. Anyway, like that Campenaerts move, yeah, it's a clever move to anticipate the climb if you're not the best climber, but it's so close to the climb that effort is basically destroying him because he's the first rider that drops from the front group, which, okay, that's normal because he's not as good as a climber as a Zana, as a Verona, as a Rivera, as a Berardi. Mihojevic was actually climbing pretty well for Bahrain Victorious at this point. So Campenaerts' move does kill him. Let's be honest about it. It does ruin his chances here. But it does offer up chances to the riders with him. We see Berardi moving to the front, directly taking over because he realized, okay, we've got a bit of a head start. Let's try and keep it that way. And we've got Verona going to the wheel, Zana going to the wheel. And from this point onwards, we kind of get the mix between the breakaway and the peloton on screen. We'll focus on the breakaway first, then we'll go to the peloton after, I think is the good order. But it does take away from what potentially could have been an epic viewing experience of the whole climb of this breakaway, because I feel like every time I was looking at the front, a new rider popped up, because eventually, well, we see that Max Poole starts showing up in the background, that he starts crawling back from that second group because he hadn't made that first group. So we see riders that eventually catch back up, but because those first riders had a head start, we've basically got riders all over the road. And that's interesting because if someone doesn't pull at the front, some other rider might come back. So over the top, we've got Max Poole, Carlos Verona, and Urko Berardi. But the camera looks behind and I see one rider there, two riders there, three riders there, one rider there, four riders there. I was like, okay, we're in this descent now. 2.8-ish kilometers of flat afterwards. Literally every single one of these riders could win this race right now.
Yeah.
Depending on the timing of an attack.
It reminded me of, there was a finish in, maybe it's the one Soler won, maybe in the store of Vuelta, there was a group of like 10 and it's just so uncontrolled. Literally anyone can win almost. And like DSM had been really confident going into the climb, really confident. Like they were sitting second wheel behind Frigo, pulling all out. And so they were confident in Max Poole and he had good legs because, we didn't see, I do think this, again, the same problem Soler had with Van Aert ahead, but even worse for McNulty here. The Fuga presents such a problem for him because if there's no Fuga on the climb, McNulty can let Riccitello pace for a bit and then wait for his moment, attack, and really go for it. With the Fuga of Berardi and Verona, he can't just pace all out the whole time with Quinten Hermans in his wheel. He's just not going to do that. but he has to pace all out to get the break back. So it was really, really interesting. Yeah, and
to be clear, Max Poole was also not in the Fuga at the start of the climb, right? I'm not sure. He's not on my list. If he was not, then he was the strongest rider on the climb. But I'm not certain.
I think Luke is saying he bridged to the 3. Listen, there was the camera work for the breakaway. I mean, we're really like trying to make things up here. Ultimately,
we're adding to the script for entertainment purposes.
Exactly. Whatever suits my narrative, I'll say. So,
and there's Alex Aramburu on the right side of the road. Okay,
Jayco were with Zana ahead and Dunbar behind. Jayco were looking in very good shape, actually. And I guess that descent, it's not technical at all. It's really like a fast pedaling descent where guys are rolling through. And we see the group ahead, Poole, Berardi, Verona, maybe someone else, Zana, let's say. Johnny Narvaez bridges to that group. We see him bridge across, sits to the back, looks back, waits a few ticks. Poole is being really generous pulling. Narvaez then starts to pull. But then Quinten Hermans comes across. That's a problem for Narvaez. Hermans is fast, especially in a finish like this. I thought this group has got it because Poole is pulling way too much and he's so strong. Narvaez has taken a pull for once in his life. Berardi might pull. Actually, Berardi attacked. Hermans will back his sprint here. The problem for them was Brandon McNulty. McNulty missed it, and some riders, they just get in this mode. They're like, I'm just bringing it back. I'm just going to bring it back. And
if you're not at the front, you can't win.
Yeah, I'm going to figure it out later. But we're going into the last K. McNulty basically closes that just up before the Flamme Rouge. Bang, another attack. I can't remember who. With maybe 800, 900 to go. It was closed by Cofidis.
Who was it? I actually don't know who it was. Narvaez was also in the wheel.
Yeah, Narvaez closed it, and these attacks, they come one side, the peloton then the breakaway sways across the right. And then there's a gap for someone coming up the other side, bang, they can open, and then it'll swing across to the left. And this swinging is happening. It swings to the left, and I can see, I was like, someone's going to go, and if they get clear air, no one will bring them back. Eddie Dunbar, shot out of a cannon, goes on the right-hand side. Peloton swings across to the right, shuts the gap from whoever it was, but then they can't get to his wheel. And it was a foregone conclusion when he gets cleared. Eddie Dunbar goes and wins this stage from the latest Fuga de la Fuga that you'll ever see. Maybe we'll just call it an attack. Ahead of Quinten Hermans, who wins the sprint after Max Poole tried to close Dunbar down. Poole actually holds on for third. There's a gap of 2 seconds. So like 2 seconds is a big margin actually when it's like the last 500 meters he's attacked. They have another gap of 2 seconds to Narvaez. Berardi holds on for fifth. Zana is sixth. Izagirre seventh. Verona eighth. Garafoli ninth. McNulty 10th. Valter 11th. George Bennett finishes in the group in 12th, which importantly for his GC moves him up 6 places into the top 10. So he's just behind Felix Gall, but yeah, it's like they didn't need to be too worried. Also, the GC group sped up quite a bit. So yeah, that was the break, Benji. Huge win for Dunbar. We'll move on to the GC guys in a second, but Dunbar, he's moved to Jayco his second year. He came straight away to his first Grand Tour at Jayco. He's good at Romandy. He came 9th, and then he at the Giro, I thought he was excellent. 4th on Bondone, faded a bit later. And then he said he's crashed 8 times since the Vuelta last year.
Vuelta last year, he crashed pretty early as well. If I recall correctly, before they entered Andorra La Massana already. Because I remember them being annoyed about the crashes already at that point. So he's been crashing quite a bit as well. But it's like, we've seen this guy at the Ineos era where he didn't really get to ride the Grand Tours in the first place. We saw him being a very good domestique for Carapaz at, was it Swiss, if I recall correctly, in, let's say, 2021, 2020, something like that. So to see him now have the freedom in Jayco, I've been liking this since he joins. He has been prominent when it comes to GC, and to be honest, getting a top 10 in GC at the Giro last year was very good. This year, that top 10 in GC hasn't worked out in a Grand Tour because the first week of the Vuelta wasn't necessarily great for him, but to win a stage like this, I think he'll be very happy to do so. And this is his first Grand Tour stage. I'm pretty sure he got third once in a Giro stage, if I recall. So it's nice to see him win that. It's nice to see Jayco pick up a a stage like this. And to be honest, also when it comes to Max Poole, great performance today.
Yeah, he was
last year
good.
he was next to the victories quite a bit. Was he second behind Remco maybe at some point?
And also he was good in Swiss or Romandy behind Yates and Jorgensen. He was really good there. And then this year he's been not as good, I didn't think.
Israel, they get a top 10 position out of Bennett in GC, so I think it was all worth it. It's just a bit unfortunate that it's only like a 10th position, because that's quickly lost
it's not
again.
Like Carapaz's move.
And now he's maybe close enough to the point that he might not be able to do that again in a few days, unless he loses time again. So it's a position where he's likely to drop out of top 10 again in the next couple of days, and maybe in week 3 he can do the same process again. That's how I perceive the situation he's dropped into, but moving up 6th place in GC, can't be too annoyed about that, to be honest. So in the breakaway, was a great adventure. Berardi probably gets a World Tour contract from someone next year, I'm guessing. Yeah, got to
sign that guy, right?
Let's talk about the peloton, because someone was cooking.
It was BORA masterclass today. They get Gamper to do a full lead out, then Dens into the base of this Cat 3. They've got the peloton absolutely in a line, and we've seen that some GC contenders just cannot tolerate the hard starts to these Rampas short climbs. Koos, for example, starts in good position, blown off the wheel. Sivakov starts in decent position, blown off the wheel. Even when it's like basically Aliotti finishing his pull, there's people dropping. Carlos Rodriguez starts in bad position again. Roglic is right there. O'Connor's in decent position. And when Aliotti's pulling, I can see Landa slipping. O'Connor's not moving up positions. He's trying to hold on. And then Vlasov takes a pull. And Vlasov's been an unbelievable domestique this year. Vlasov drops everybody off the wheel except Roglic and Mas. Lipovic is gone. O'Connor's gone. Landa, Rodriguez, everybody's blown off the wheel by Vlasov's pull. And basically Roglic then tries to continue at that pace. Mas is nose breathing in the wheel, at least in my opinion. And and what's more, Roglic gets a couple of relays from Mas. He gets a couple of pulls. Now, Mas wasn't pulling all out. He's got a descent coming up. He's also looking back. He's seeing Landa's returning. So Landa's gets a pull from Catania, I think. And Catania was very good on stage.
2 days ago?
Yeah, maybe
yesterday. He was
yesterday on the top of Mugas. He was in a group of 10 after like Catania all of a sudden is really riding well, so it wasn't Lecef, I don't think.
Correct. It was Catania.
So he's pulling back, and then Landa starts to bridge across. So Mas sees that, and he doesn't really commit. He's also like, he knows he's not going to drop anybody on it with a descent coming up. That's not good for him. So Landa returns, as well as Schjelmer's on his wheel. I'm trying to think who else was there initially. And Godou. Godou really, really, really good. Carlos Rodriguez wasn't there at this moment. And O'Connor's losing big time. He looked like he was holding it stable. And then the last maybe 2 minutes of this climb, or 90 seconds, he loses like another 20 seconds and gets blown out. Goal also wasn't there to help him today.
How much would you say the gap was on top of the climb? Roughly 25, 30 seconds?
It looked pretty big. Maybe 20 seconds, 25 seconds.
Because the clock at the top said 30 seconds at some point, but that seemed like very quick to be 30 seconds.
Too much.
So I'm guessing around 25, maybe the middle of both of us. But to be honest, if you look at a climb like this on the profile, it's inevitable in my head that Roglic drops O'Connor on that climb. But
yeah, guaranteed.
It's also like the question of, does it surprise you that Roglic ends up with more than just Mas at the top of the climb? Because I also kind of expect him to get over the climb with a gap on the likes of Landa, etc.
Landa did have Catania helping. Roglic did have to really accelerate. That being said, we saw Landa coming back to him a little bit on the Cazorla finish, maybe. So, but then Roglic dropped him, like really went all out to the top. So maybe Roglic is holding a little bit back for the descent. And also maybe Roglic knows, what does it matter if Landa comes back to him if O'Connor's not there? So why not hold
more
a bit
help
back?
On the flat?
Yeah, exactly. More guys to collaborate. That's playing devil's advocate. I agree, Benji. The answer is that this cannot be the best Roglic. So at least I don't think. Or
Hey, but
Landers.
if he wins a Vuelta not being the best Roglic, then he shouldn't be complaining either.
So they go over the top. Rodriguez returns in the descent, and this is where the masterclass continues. Danny Martinez is waiting on the descent and pulls all out, whereas I don't know who returned to help O'Connor, or if they didn't have anyone in the breakaway. I don't think so. Basically, O'Connor had to wait for Gull to return, and Koos catches up with him, so he was really losing a lot of time.
But also,
yeah,
I feel like in the chasing group, well, first of all, you've got the Roglic group up ahead. The gap towards the Bennett group is now over 30 seconds on the flat part. And I'm looking at the two groups, and I see in the Ben O'Connor group, not just Felix Gall, but Clément Berthet pacing at the front in the last 200 meters, with Gall sitting in last position. So I feel like Gall maybe struggled a little more today. But the fact that Clément Berthet is in that group, that's a hell of a performance today, right? Thoughts?
I think Gull had a positioning shocker. He's not good on these climbs. And then on the flat and descent, he's almost no help to roll through. So it's just not the day for him. I think O'Connor also overextended again. Like Rodriguez paced himself a lot better. Maybe O'Connor could have been with Carapaz and Sivakov 15 seconds behind at the finish with a bit better pacing because his descending is good. But that wasn't the case. So Schellmoser pulls through. They finished 3:31 behind Bennett. The gap to, and so Schellmoser, Rodriguez, Gaudu, Roglic, Landa, Mas in that group. Carapaz and Sivakov 15 seconds behind. O'Connor, Lipovic, Haig, Yates again loses more time. Koos, Vlasov, it was Clément Berthet. Wow, they're 37 seconds behind. So it's a lot of time, and also, it's also not a lot of time in the context of the time gap. It's maybe 20% of his total time gap to Roglic.
But the question is, we've seen on the big mountain stage, the Hazalana stage a few days ago, that on that kind of stage, O'Connor can manage to not lose time to someone like Roglic, apparently. On a climb like today, which is very short, very steep, that's where Roglic has the upper hands. But then we look at the rest of this parkour of this La Vuelta. How much does today's time loss mean for the rest of the race? Because tomorrow, for example, we've got 137 kilometers. We've got actually quite a bit of altitude meters in the first 80% of the stage, but the big climb is at the end, 15.9 kilometers, 4.7%. On a stage like that, O'Connor should not be losing time to Roglic, in my personal opinion. Then the day after, Puerto de Ancara, 7.5 kilometers, 9%. That's longer than a climb than like today. And also, Quito Negro, that final climb is in total 18.9 kilometers at 7.1%, but very steep segments in it. Is O'Connor then, yes, there's still steep kilometers in that Quito Negro, but the climb being so much longer, does that benefit O'Connor versus today?
For sure, because what's happening is BORA, their team, can do this lead out that they did today. They can execute that with Vlasov, Aliotti, Dens, and Gamper. Like the rouleurs can do the first 30 seconds, and it's all positioning and just sprinting basically. Then Aliotti and then Vlasov, obviously super good on these climbs. Quito Negro, the steep part is in the last 3Ks. So like Dens and Gamper won't be there. Danny Martinez won't be there, at least in any meaningful respect, unless he's a satellite rider. So it's like getting that lead out is a lot harder. And so he just sort of has to attack off what pace. And then, and we saw into the base of Hazelanas if Lipovic basically dropped him, or did drop him. But
you don't have that burst that Roglic has used to drop O'Connor twice now.
Well, if he does that burst, what will happen is he will stall. If you do that burst at the base of Quito Negro steep section, then on the 14%, the next 2 kilometers, you'll stall. So, but the thing is, O'Connor then tries to follow and cracks himself. So, I think Enric Mas winning the Vuelta has never looked better than today, to be honest. Like,
I agree.
Mas looks really, to me, almost the favorite, because on Hazellanas, he put a minute into Roglic, and Roglic didn't know that he wasn't playing some master plan that would get Mas back on the descent. For all he knew, Mas was taking 2 minutes. And Libovic and Mas dropping him was real. And so that was a minute on 25-minute climb. Ancares plus the next one. Ooh.
How much is the gap right now between Mas and Roglic? Because if we take a look at that right now, the gap between the two, then we're looking at a solid 42 seconds.
It's not much.
If we take a look at the final time trial, 25 kilometers, relatively flat, to be honest. How much time does Roglic take on paper towards a Mas on a time trial like that? I'm looking at previous time trials and I'm thinking, okay, a minute roughly?
A minute, maybe.
50 seconds to a minute I've got in my head.
Yeah, I think that's about right. On the first TT, Roglic took on Enric Mas 23 seconds, but that was a really fast TT. This one in Madrid is it's a bit more rolly. I would say 50 seconds to a minute. It's about par, yeah.
So 42 seconds plus, let's say 50 seconds conservatively.
Yeah, that's 130.
A minute 32 is roughly what Mas needs to take on Roglic in the next week and a half as well. So we need a proper wobble from Roglic.
I don't think so.
No?
Just Ancares, 40 seconds, 30 seconds plus the bonies.
Yeah.
Quitu Negru, 30 seconds plus the bonies. You're about there.
I think Quitu Negru's the one.
Yeah. I think Mas has got to keep playing this game that O'Connor is Roglic's problem. And he's doing that really well, and O'Connor is Roglic's problem. That may change if he goes into red and drops Roglic on Ancares. If he drops Roglic on Ancares and O'Connor remains in red. So that climbs 7.5 Ks, 9%, with the last 5 Ks average about 11.5%. So that is that's looking good for Mas, that climb, I would say. But maybe the heat was what was affecting Roglic in Sierra Nevada. Maybe it was the heat, but that's a long 176K stage. It's got nearly 4,000 meters elevation gain. Problem is Movistar's team.
Yeah.
Like, I think, is Rubio here?
Yes.
Rubio and Quintana are just worthless.
Invisible.
Yeah, like.
Genuinely invisible.
Well, Rubio was good on Viercas and then just disintegrated. So they got to pull their finger out and do something for Mas on stage 13 and 15 because he can win this Vuelta.
But also the benefit is that Movistar doesn't necessarily need to do it when BORA might overextend themselves to try and take O'Connor back, which is the whole benefit for Ben Mas that O'Connor is in the red jersey in the first place. So I see that as a possibility as well. And to be honest, right now, who do we see as the candidates to still win this Vuelta? O'Connor could win the Vuelta if he survives. Roglic could still win the Vuelta. Mas might arguably be the favorite in my head, which that might more be because I want Mas to win a Grand Tour at some point. But I also feel like objectively he's looked the best climber in this race so far. But outside of that, do you still see it for Carapaz, Landa, Carlos Rodriguez,
no.
Adam Yates?
It's Roglic or Mas.
Okay. You don't see it for O'Connor either?
I think Ancares is so steep. I know he was good on Hazellanas.
Yeah.
That might have been he was benefiting from the attrition, and Mas put him on a minute on Hazellanas.
Yeah, true.
So, but still, he's 4 minutes ahead of he's 4 minutes ahead of Mas. So, yeah, I mean, and then the last week, Covadonga, that's super hard. Then Moncalvillo is 9Ks, 9%. Picon Blanco is 8Ks, 9%. Nah, I don't see it. He's losing time too fast unless he improves his climb. If he can climb with Landa, or if he can climb with Rodriguez, he has a chance. So he has to climb with Rodriguez. It's
so weird to say, but for me, it feels like Mas is the favorite right now.
I think he is because he's the better climber from what we've seen. Has Roglic dropped him yet?
No.
and must put a minute into him. To me, this is like this feels a lot like Vingegaard Pogačar 2022 Tour de France, where Pogačar in the end gapped Vingegaard on Planche de Belfi, but in fact it was a victory for Vingegaard because the fact that he was in the photo finish and attacking meant that for the longer climbs he was really in the game, and that's how I feel about Mas against Roglic. The fact that Mas is doing it so easy on these shorter climbs suggests to me that he's going to really cook on Ancares and Quito Negro. But listen, Mas has not won big races for a reason as well. So, and Roglic has. Yeah. So I think it's between those two though. Tomorrow's stage, Benji, what do you think?
Well, I've gone through the parkour already, but thinking about the stage itself, 4.3% for that. It's such a weird. Can I just say that?
It's a Giro-ish stage, yeah.
I don't really know what, like, this is the kind of parkour where you could literally say, okay, Bora could control it for a Roglic sprint. It's 139 kilometers. But are they going to do that after what they did today, but mainly before Puerto de Ancaras the day after? I'm not sure about that. It's very... There's a lot of climbing up and down during the stage, no? Like, what are the altitude meters on this? Do we have a number on that?
Yeah, it's over 3,000 with only 137 Ks. So it has, it's up and down all day. This is another raid stage. I think this is going to be extremely difficult to control, and so I think we're going to see a dangerous, massive breakaway again. Like there's a climb out of neutral, short flat zone, then another 3K 6% climb. I think Bora trying to control this will kill their team. So. I think it's a breakaway. So the same sort of guys, Campenaerts, Verona, Zana, Berardi, all the same characters we saw on the break today will be trying again tomorrow with the uphill finish. It
doesn't shout Sepp Kuss to me, the parkour, but these are the kind of stage where he needs to try to get in the breakaway as well to gain time back because he's currently on 15 von 816. So he needs that kind of adventure as well. And same with Cristian Rodriguez, try and get in the breakaway. Maybe Sivakov on a stage like this. Get in the breakaway. I'd like to see those kind of moves.
Yeah, like Sivakov is in 13th on 649. Kuss is now far enough on 816 that's basically where, or almost where George Bennett was. And indeed, the last 2Ks are 7%. So if it does go to the peloton, this is a Roglic sprint. I do not think, or a Godou even, like Godou actually very good for this finish, or better Van Evels. He looks like there's something wrong. So I don't see someone like Van Aert being able to win this from the GC group. I think it's going to be a breakaway, and I'm going to go with I don't know who to go with, to be honest. Campenaerts.
I'm just hoping you don't. Campenaerts, okay. I'm leaning towards... I feel like it might not be hard enough for Harold Tejada. I'm not sure. He's been climbing very well in the last week, though. So I kind of want to go towards him. I'm kind of looking for that kind of rider that can really grind those 4% climbs as well, you know? But then it ends in 2 kilometers at 7%, so...
Vacek's got to go in.
Oh. I would like that, but then I would also like to see Skelmos in there as well. He's still not that far, but he's like far enough where he might be able to get in the breakaway. I'm not 100% certain about that one. I'll go for Harold Tejada. Why not?
He looks pretty good to me as well in this race. Elsewhere in the cycling world, we saw in the Bingo Bongo Renewy Tour Stage 1 from Reims to Bilzen, 163k sprint stage, really hectic final, like so much road furniture, and it was really, really crazy stuff. Coy crashed, and there was a big left-hand hairpin with about a K to go, and we saw the Sprinters World Championships sort of 5-day stage race beginning, and Jonathan Milan, I got to say, for me, this is the most impressive sprint of the year. He's already left in the air. MVDP almost starts his lead out too hard and drops Philipsen off the wheel. Milan takes the lead out of Van der Poel, still launches early. He's got Philipsen right in the wheel the whole time and just straight up ruins Philipsen. Like, as soon as Philipsen came out of his wheel, he started going backwards. And so this is Milan, I think, his most impressive sprint victory. Like, positioning was important, and to beat Philipsen like that, it's just crazy. Zangler third rather, Philipsen second. Tim Merlier stopped sprinting, saw Groenewegen coming past him, started sprinting again, deviated, and then when he biked through, fully chopped Groenewegen. I think this is one of the worst moves I've seen in cycling this year. Right, really, this is not yellow card stuff. This is you got to sit out for the rest of the season stuff to me. Like to so blatantly deviate and just chop a guy causing a crash at 65 kilometers an hour is just completely unacceptable. It's way worse than a few elbows. It's worse than headbutting. It's worse than even slowly deviating. He just straight up crashed Groenewegen, and yeah, Merlier's got to go and have an early holiday, I think. But he got relegated, so we'll see. But really bad.
For me, the actual bike show itself is at least a yellow card for being very reckless. But do you believe there was intent in the first place?
You can see what he's doing. He sees Groenewegen's coming up, starts his sprint again, already starts to move across to him, like really bad. And then to shout it or think that it's somehow Groenewegen's fault, like if Nasser Bouhanni had done
that's the worst part, you know? It's irrelevant to the actual thing he did wrong, but the fact that he's starting to blame Groenewegen, like by pointing at him just after the line, while Groenewegen's on the floor, basically looks like injured on the floor. I'm sorry, but that's dickhead behavior.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens. But to me, a yellow card is when you do something that's like, that's a yellow card. Don't do it again. To me, this was a 2-footed tackle with studs up, red card, in my opinion. So, because he just straight up crashed a dude for no reason. And they're lucky. This is the middle of a sprint. This is like they're sprinting for fourth. They're lucky no one was right behind them, and Paul Penaway just avoids it. This could have brought down 8 guys at 70 k's an hour. Penaway fifth.
He's lucky.
Yeah.
They're lucky that it's not happening next to the barrier, that it's happening in the middle of the road. Otherwise, Groenewegen flies into the barrier. Jacobsen stall as a consequence of what Merlier is doing here. So I agree this was a bad move. And it's like, for me, the yellow card system hasn't necessarily been applied the right way in the last few weeks. If we look at Guarici getting a yellow card at Tour de France Femme, she was moving backwards after lead out, and she's shouting into a microphone to motivate Wibbes, who is sprinting. For me, that's not what a yellow card was meant to be. For me, that's a fine, warning, whatever, penalty, fine. But for me, a yellow card is one step out of 2 towards a disqualification and a 7-day suspension. That's 1/3 within a month period towards a 14-day suspension. That's 1/6 within a year period towards a 30-day suspension. So those need to be dealt with care. What Merlier is definitely a yellow card. Arguably, you can talk about the board of commission. Well, what's it called? The disciplinary commission can already talk about a thing like this, in my personal opinion. But to me, relegations is where like a yellow card gets dealt, to make sure that a rider doesn't do the same thing multiple times during X amount of time and gets punished for that, and not used as just a warning, you know?
Yeah, I mean, if the Guarici thing is a yellow card, then what is this? You know, like how can you have them equivalent? I'm just rewatching it again. He sprints around, Groenewegen's on his wheel, he sprints around maybe Thijssen. For some reason, he just stops his sprint and then
he thinks he's
freewheel.
He thinks he's fourth, then realizes Groenewegen will take over him and starts to deviate towards him and does the bike throw basically into Groenewegen, which causes the crash. The fact that it is because he stopped sprinting in the first place makes this such a 0 IQ move by Tim Merlier. I'm sorry, but
that's why relegation,
such a stupid move.
What's the point of relegation? So what?
It looks like he turned his brain off in the last 5 seconds of this race.
Yeah. So that was kind of crazy. And tomorrow in the we have a TT. Ganna dropped from the peloton. I don't know whether he's saving the legs for tomorrow. If he was saving the legs, I would say that's ill-advised, because he could win GC here. So I don't know what's happening. Maybe that means he's no good for the TT. Maybe that means he'll win. It's from Tessenderlo to Tessenderlo. It is pretty flat, 15k TT, and I would say he's the favourite, but there's also Sheffield. And don't be just surprised if UAE win with either Vellens or Mikel Biao. And I think Vellens, with his TT being so good, is a big candidate to win this race. But to be honest, like with the way Milan is riding and his TT, he already took 10 seconds today. There's bonus second kilometers later in the race. Milan for GC is looking really, really, really good because I don't think Tim Wellens can beat Jonathan Milan in a sprint. I don't, at least not from what I've seen. Okay, I think that's all, Benji. Unless there's any other breaking cycling news.
Not necessarily. I think those were the most important races of today. A lot of yellow card discussions in this podcast. Let's hope. Oh, go ahead. Did you get a yellow card? What did you do?
I didn't get a yellow card. Daniel Benson reported on his Substack that Bora Hansgrohe have given an ultimatum to Remco Evenepoel. Essentially, they've given him a week to decide if he wants to join the team.
Okay. I don't know what to say about that. Like,
I've given Dua Lipa a week to join our family holiday. last chance. Sorry.
It's like, I'm sorry, but there's like a whole lot of context that is missing for us to discuss the situation. If there's Red Bull Bora Hansgrohe saying, okay, a week, then there have to have been conversations before that.
Yeah, I think so.
And without knowing what those conversations include, it's impossible for me to judge this whole situation.
Yeah, but as it says in Benson's article, that Bora haven't really commented on it. I mean, they can't, because if you say we're talking to Remco to the press, you're admitting you're tampering.
Yeah.
Unless you have permission of Soudal Quickstep and Lefebvre.
Because, to be clear, tampering, you're the UCI lorry guy. Tell me.
So you are allowed to talk to, any team can talk to Remco Evenepoel about joining them in respect of contract years for which he's not under contract. So according to PCS, any team can talk to Remco about joining them in 2027, January 1. But to talk to him about joining in year 25 or 26, where he's under contract with Soudal Quickstep, I believe you need permission of the existing team for which he has a contract. Yeah. The UCI actually, funnily enough, in light of the Kjarnotebrooks drama last off-season, they introduced new rules with respect to this, including specified penalties. So I don't know, but that's also why obviously teams are not going to comment on it. But it'll be interesting. It says in that article also that Pidcock will not be joining, but yeah, there's more context in there, as Benji says, if you want to read through it. That's what I don't see. So out of, who do you think is more likely right now, Benji? Pidcock, Ayuso, or Remco? Who's more likely to leave this off-season out of those three?
Kind of feel like Remco is the least of the three. You know?
Okay.
It's a difficult one, to be honest. Like, if I look at all three, on one end, Ayuso's in a situation which visibly doesn't seem to be very, very great, but then obviously Machin's not going to say it. But then I read an article about Machin this morning, and I'm trying to figure out where it was because it was a really good interview.
It was Relevo from Arribas.
Yeah. And in there, then they're saying, oh, Ayuso fine situation is actually very, very good. Obviously, Machin will say that. Like, obviously, but then
it was too much. It was pretending like it's been happy families. It's like, we know it's not true. Like, clearly there was a problem.
Yeah. Then on Pidcock's side, from an external view, we've held the whole Cummings thing. No clue what Cummings is doing right now. We haven't seen him at any race ever since he dipped out of the Tour de France, or was dipped out of the Tour de France. So no clue what's happening there. Was that related to Pidcock in the first place? Who knows? I actually can't tell you which of the three is more likely to leave. Who do you feel?
I don't think Pidcock's leaving. Ayuso, also don't see it. So yeah, Remco probably.
I think this year I don't see
if
Any of
if
the
I had
three
to say
move.
option D, I would say none leaving would be what I would press.
Yeah. I think
would
so
expect
too
none.
right now.
Yeah.
Next year, it's different. End of next year, we're going to see moves. This year,
Yeah.
I don't see it yet. There needs to be something more, what do you call things you can grab onto? Tangible for me to judge that upon.
There's not enough like evidence, bait. What do you mean?
Yeah.
Crumbs? Bread trail?
Or even like rumors. I feel like right now the rumors are very limited compared to last year. We were much closer to one of the three leaving a team, I felt like. With the whole merger drama. Right now I don't have the crumbs yet.
Yeah. Anyway, that's the thing bubbling away. So just monitor that, and yeah, Benson on Twitter and on his Substack, he's been covering that stuff. So anyway, we'll see you with the recap of another stage that could kick off again tomorrow. Until then, ciao.